Have you ever been told that your dream is too big? That your research project is too vast to so narrow it? That your outreach program is aiming a bit too high, so downscale it since you're not well known? Or maybe that your voice is too loud? Or maybe that you should wait your turn? Well, I have. See, these words may sound very harmless, but in retrospect, they're not. They are instructions to shrink, to fold ourselves into boxes that were never designed for us in the first place. Personally, I know these boxes too well, because for most of my life, I've tried to squeeze into them. Academia wanted me to research safe ideas. Policy spaces wanted me to advocate politely, while corporate wanted me to conform neatly. And when I couldn't fit in, I was told to tone it down, to wait, or to keep quiet. But fitting in never felt honest. It felt like suffocating, like the slow death of my potential, my voice, and my calling. See, I stand here today because one day I decided to become curious. Curious about what life could actually look like if I stopped trying to fit in and actually started defying these boxes. And that curiosity changed everything. And it's the reason I'm here today, not just to share my story, but to invite you to defy as well. Now, before I run ahead of myself, let me just assure everyone that I'm not here to encourage you to start a revolution. Well, at least not the kind that you might be worried about. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines defiance as a bold or daring resistance to authority or an opposing force. My first pattern of defiance showed up as self-discovery, when I found myself sitting around a table full of men, and my then manager made a joke about how my role was merely just a quota, and how I could never be found to be a leader in any regard because I simply did not look the part. And as everybody laughed, I joined into the laughter and said, well, you'd be amazed by what other directors have to say. For me, it was simply saying, I am not as insignificant as you'd like me to be. And so following that moment, I did something very uncharacteristic because I knew that something had shifted. I knew that a new pattern was developing. I went on to send a LinkedIn message to a vice president of a division within a company in the mining sector. Not really expecting her to respond, but Kesana, she did. And next thing you know, I was sitting across from her at a coffee shop, nervously debating whether to order carrot or caramel cake, while internally panicking about what on earth I would have to say to someone so well accomplished. See, I had prepared my questions, I had rehearsed my talking points, but when the moment came, my mouth betrayed my brain. There emerged my second pattern, substituting perfection with honesty. See, I went on to tell her how exhausted, how unfulfilled and invisible I felt, how I was watching myself shrink in the very spaces that were meant to help me grow. She listened, and she went on to ask me a question that would echo in my heart long after the coffee cups had been cleared. Who do you want to be remembered as? Not what titles are you after, not what industries do you want to find yourself in, but who do you want to be remembered as? And that question was like a mirror I couldn't look away from, because I knew that nothing around me was going to change until something in me did. And that change showed up in the form of one word: defiance. See, I believe that defiance is part of our history as South Africans. I mean, think about it. Apartheid ended not through compliance, but because ordinary South Africans refused to accept a system that was designed to erase them, paving way for our third pattern, challenging the norm. We live in a country where women make up 51% of the country's population according to Stats SA. However, we still see how disproportional and underrepresented women are in executive positions. with just 28% of them being in top executive positions and 15% being CEOs of JSE-listed companies, all according to the PwC Executive Director's Report. However, women like Mpumi Madisa, who got appointed as the first female CEO of Bidford's Group, Nikki Newton-King, who is known as the first woman to run the JSE, Bettina Engelbert, who joined Clicks Group SA as an HR director, now sits as its first female CEO. Not only that, but the first African woman to lead a JSE-listed retail group. And Nompumelelo Zikalala, who is the first black woman CEO of Kumba Iron Ore, which is a subsidiary of Anglo American, are examples of what is possible when we choose to defy the expectations of who and what we should be. I believe that these women saw how disproportionate boardrooms were, rooms that were created, but that were not created rather with them in mind, spaces where their voices were expected to be absent, faint, or merely symbolic. I believe that they recognized how patterns of exclusion had been normalized and how transitions of power often bypassed women and how systems were structured to keep them in the background. But instead of accepting this inherited script, they chose to rewrite it. And I believe that in doing so, in choosing to lead, they have showed us how representation is more than a tick-box exercise, and leadership is a space to be transformed. They understood that true change demanded more than just presence. It demanded power. And not the kind of power that simply fills a seat, but the kind that shapes decisions, redirects industries, and redefines possibilities for everyone that comes after them. And in choosing to do that, when we choose to step into power, we don't just get to change our own stories, we get to bend history. Defiance is not a moment, it is an undertaking. It is not for a select few, but it is for all of us. And when we dare to step in it, when we dare to be unapologetic and yielding, and we stand true and firm in who we know ourselves to be, we don't only just get to change our own lives, but we change the patterns for everyone that comes after us. See, for me, Defiance looked like reimagining Her Pride Foundation and impacting over 2,000 young girls. It looked like stepping into global human rights spaces, not as a decoration, but as the first youth voice to sit on the board of Amnesty International South Africa and its youngest vice chair to date. It looked like leaving jobs that suffocated me to stepping into spaces where my voice was needed. So today, I want to challenge you to sit in it. I want to challenge you to defy. Defy the norms, defy the limits, defy the circumstances, and in doing so, become the very proof that nothing and no one can stand in the way of who you were created to be. So, I'm not standing here because I fit into anyone's box, but it is because I defied them. And today, the choice rests with you. Will you go back into the patterns that were never defined for you, or will you rise to defy them? My name is Duduzile Mabaso, and thank you for coming to my TED Talk.